Every story starts at home, and so does education. Not in a classroom, but at the kitchen table, in the way a child is spoken to, in what they're allowed to touch, watch, consume, in what kind of mind they're being built into. This isn't a new story. The elite have always protected their children from the very things they sold to everyone else. Let's start with the obvious. 3 or 4 centuries ago in Europe, the children of aristocrats were educated by private tutors. No classrooms of 40 kids all memorizing the same thing. Instead, individual attention, critical thinking, philosophy, rhetoric, mathematics, from an early age. While the children of peasants, if they were lucky, learned to read from church texts, if they learned to read at all. Then came the Industrial Revolution, the 19th century. Factory owners built mills, hired children as young as 6 or 7, and it was legal. It was normal, it was profitable. And their own children? Private schools, governesses, the grand tour of Europe. The gap wasn't just financial, it was a gap in the very concept of childhood. For the poor, childhood meant you were already working. That's why you existed. For the wealthy, childhood was preparation, training to one day manage the people who do the work. The 20th century gave us the television, and when it arrived in mass homes, wealthy families looked at it with quiet suspicion. The TV was entertainment for the uneducated, the idiot box. That's what it was called in certain circles, and not quietly. While working-class families sat their kids in front of the screen to keep them out of the way, in wealthier homes, they kept reading aloud, playing live instruments, arguing ideas over dinner. Then came video games, then the internet. Every time, the same pattern. A new technology arrives. The educated class approaches it with skepticism, then they begin to use it, but carefully, intentionally, in controlled doses, while the mass market just consumes, no filter, testing it on themselves, the way regular people test cheap vapes. And here's the part that's easy to miss. This isn't snobbery, this is something else. This is an understanding of how the brain works during the years it's actually forming. Wealthy families have historically hired people who understood this, doctors, philosophers, educators. They had access to knowledge about the developing mind, about the fact that a child's brain is not a small adult brain, that it is being built, that what you feed it in the early years determines what it becomes. Poor families simply didn't have that knowledge, not because they were less intelligent, because access didn't exist. And now we're in 2026. The pattern is exactly the same. Just replace the television with a smartphone. Replace the soap opera with infinite TikTok. And the elite, once again, know something the rest of us are only beginning to figure out. They build the apps, they design the platforms, they create the algorithms and the artificial intelligence. They spend enormous amounts of money on marketing, pushing all of it into our hands, our pockets, our children's bedrooms, and then quietly hide these same technologies from their own kids. This is not an accident. This is a deliberate strategy of protection. And some of these examples still manage to shock people when they hear them for the first time. Did you know, for instance, that Steve Jobs, the man who gave the world the iPhone and the iPad, told a New York Times journalist in 2010 directly, "My kids haven't used it. We limit how much technology our kids use at home." He banned his children from using the iPad, the same device he was selling to the world as a near miraculous invention. And this wasn't a casual slip. Jobs was consistent about it. Technology in his home was strictly limited, especially for younger children. Bill Gates went further. No smartphones for his kids until age 14. This is the man whose company built Windows, one of the wealthiest people on the planet. Gates banned phones at the dinner table, set hard limits on screen time before bed, implemented household rules like no devices after a certain hour. He spoke openly. We didn't give our kids cell phones until they were 14, and they complained that other kids had gotten them sooner. Gates knew exactly what he was saying. He'd seen what these technologies do to the human brain. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, early investor in Facebook, allows his children 1.5 hours of screens per week. Not per day, per week. When he said this publicly, it caused genuine shock. Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat, same rule, 1.5 hours a week. Elon Musk later admitted he may have made a mistake by not setting stricter rules around social media for his own children. Make of that what you will.
Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit.
Why do they do this? Because they know how these products are built from the inside. They know which strings of human psychology are being pulled. Most importantly, they understand the mechanics of addiction. Infinite scroll, notifications, algorithms designed to capture attention at any cost. They've watched short-form content destroy the ability to focus deeply. They've watched it happen because they built the machine that made it happen. But that film is a few years old now. The platforms have evolved. Infinite scroll is so standard that people don't even remember it was ever a design choice. So let's look at what the research from 2024 and 2025 is actually showing. And it's a more troubling picture than the one we had before. The American Psychological Association confirmed in 2025, more screen time equals more emotional and behavioral problems in children. And it's a vicious cycle. Screens produce anxiety, depression, hyperactivity, and children with those conditions retreat further into screens to cope. You probably recognize this pattern. I do. A meta-analysis of 117 studies found that children under 2 with any screen exposure, except video calls, and children between 2 and 5 with more than 1 hour a day, and children older than that with more than 2 hours a day, all showed significantly elevated risks of attention problems, sleep disruption, impaired social development, and difficulty with emotional regulation. Research from 2025 links excessive screen time to shortened attention spans, degraded sleep, reduced physical activity, and in some cohorts, elevated risk of suicidal ideation. And here, I have to mention a book that genuinely shook the English-speaking world in 2024 and hasn't stopped being discussed since. Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist at NYU, published The Anxious Generation. His argument is straightforward. We accidentally ran a massive experiment on an entire generation of children. We took away their free time, their face-to-face contact, their boredom, and replaced it with a smartphone. What we got in return was an epidemic of anxiety, depression, and an inability to function without a screen in hand. Haidt calls it the great rewiring of childhood. Around 2012, when smartphones became truly mass market, graphs tracking adolescent mental health disorders bent sharply upward. Is it a coincidence? He's certain it isn't, and the data backs him up.